All right. Good evening, everyone. Feel free to, for those of you who are logged on, just to give me a quick hello and make sure that you can hear me and you can see me okay. But welcome to, I guess it's a continuation of a tradition that we started over the summer, these OST caffeine chats for mostly the parents, although I know some students were joining you as well. For those of you who are new to the first time, welcome. And for those of you who are old and returning and you hung out with us all summer, welcome back. It's so nice to see you. I was selfishly a little excited, not even a little, I was kind of a lot excited for us to be getting back together again a couple weeks in. It's crazy how a couple weeks difference, what a difference things can be a couple weeks from when we last got together here. But it's really nice to see all of you, and thank you for taking the time to join me again. So with that, I know, we put this, I put this on Monday night just because I know the Jewish holidays were over the weekend. So Happy New Year and congratulations to all those who celebrated that. You'll also notice that my background looks a little bit different. So like many of you, vacations over the summer were canceled, and my family in particular has been coming to Ocean City, New Jersey for decades. And we were able to sneak away a little bit thanks to some remote learning. My second grader is virtual. He's at home until through the end of the year. So we said, you know what if there's a way that we could kind of sneak to the shore a little bit? So I'm actually reporting, or I guess recording live from Ocean City, New Jersey. So my background looks a little bit different. I will also apologize because any of you out there who have loud family members, or maybe you're loud yourself, but I apologize in advance if anybody comes running in here. But I closed the door and I said, okay, everybody leave me alone for an hour. So here we are, and thank you again for your patience tonight and welcome. So a huge thank you to everybody who submitted a question. I put this, I was thinking, after the summer sessions were over, the chats were over, I was thinking to myself, I would like to touch base with them a couple weeks into the semester and just kind of get a sense of what are some of the questions that they might be having, how are their students doing from obviously not the student perspective, but I wasn't really sure what you all needed to know about, right? Other than I think the obvious, what's going on in the spring? Talk to me about the spend the day at TCNJ events. I knew that there were a couple of things that were going to be pretty obvious there, but thank you for submitting through the Ask a Question feed, because a whole bunch of more questions came up, and I think that that's really helpful because I wanted to make sure that we were really maximizing the time that we had here together tonight. So I have kind of went through all the questions that were submitted. I put together all of my talking points, and I'm going to go through those, but same rules as we did over the summer. If you have questions and you're logged into YouTube, you can feel free to put them into the group chat. It's just me tonight. Again, no moderators or no other people behind the scenes that get to scroll through and look for your questions. So bear with me. I'll try to scroll back at the end. I'll keep one eye on the chat, but I will scroll back at the end just to see if there was anything that I missed. But I'm going to go ahead and get started with those, but feel free to throw your questions in there, and I'll try to get to as many of those additional ones as I can. So I know there's a little delay on my end, but hopefully everybody, you see me, I'm showing live still, so I think we're good to go. All right. So first up, I wanted to actually talk a little bit about your student. There were a handful of questions that were submitted about just students that were having challenges with connecting to the college and feeling engaged with TCNJ, given the fact that we're all remote and working and living at home. So I want, a couple of you reached out for that, and I wanted to kind of address that first and foremost. Obviously one of the, a part of that is a huge desire for why the president wants us to host these Spend a Day at TCNJ events, just because we know that there are students who are going to be struggling with that kind of connection because they weren't able to be on campus for the fall semester. But we are, so I had one person who asked, well, what is TCNJ doing? And the short answer is a lot, so much. And I realized that I'm not 100% sure necessarily that the parents know all that's going on. So I want to highlight a couple of things real quick. The first, and I'm going to put this into the group chat, is a link to the virtual opportunities page on the Office or the Division of Student Affairs website. And I'm going to go ahead and throw that in there now. Let me know if you see it. So everything that we're kind of doing in the virtual space lives on that page. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this week at TCNJ Next, which is the biggest kind of opportunity that we're pushing to students. But the other nice thing about that is that there's some other activities and resource pages and those types of things on that website. So that's the first website that I would encourage you or your student to go take a look at. The second is, and it's the first thing you're going to see on there, is This Week at TCNJ. So over the summer, when I was telling y'all that once the students get started, they get a weekly email from me with all of the events that were going on campus. Well, unbeknownst to me, the Office of Student Involvement and a couple of other partners had kind of gotten together and say, hey, we want to start basically doing what I was doing, but instead of just for the new students, for the entire campus. And I said, oh, okay, well, that's fantastic. Like, how can I support? So we launched this week at TCNJ, and I'm going to put the link in the chat as well. But if you go to Instagram, and anybody can follow this. So I think as a parent, if you're thinking of ways to kind of help maybe have a dialogue with your student, start a conversation with your student about how things are going, and you want to get a glimpse of what's going on, you can 100% feel free to follow This Week at TCNJ. They are doing a tremendous job at pushing out content and events in the virtual space that are being hosted by the 230 plus recognized student organizations on campus. I have been really impressed with the types of creativity that the student orgs are coming up with for doing things in the virtual space. I mean, talk about making, lemonade out of lemons. They're just really coming up with such creative programming. They will also push through this week at TCNJ. And it's not just student organizations, it is offices and student support resources across campus. So for example, our Department of Recreation and Wellness is doing tremendous things in terms of group fitness classes online, or do-it-yourself art projects, or recreate your night activities. And This Week at TCNJ is pushing all of that content also. It's just such a tremendous place to kind of start there for both you and your student. And then obviously, as he or she has interests or things that they might be getting involved with that they want to learn more about, that would be a really great opportunity to kind of then shoot off and see where we are. I mean, I think most offices were really using Instagram as the place for pushing events and content and those types of things with the students. That's really kind of the spot that they're at. They're not really on Twitter as much, and Facebook a little bit less so than that. So This Week at TCNJ is a great place to start for both you and your student to kind of get a sense of what we're doing. The second place would obviously be the Office of Student Involvement. So that's the office that is co-running the This Week at TCNJ page. And I'm going to put their Instagram in there too. Theirs is actually Roar TCNJ, which is the name of our app, our mobile app. But again, they're pushing really great content in terms of involvement in those types of things too. You may find that they're a bit repetitive, the difference between those two accounts. So This Week at TCNJ is going to cover everybody. Roar TCNJ, so the Office of Student Involvement, is doing specific virtual programming throughout the month of September as well. I think they're doing something every night of the week, Monday to Thursday. Often, I think, with prizes and small giveaways and things of that nature. So that's the difference between the two. So there's some programming that the administrative office and student involvement's running. And then also through This Week at TCNJ, they're highlighting everybody else on campus, student orgs and not, that are hosting things. So that would be another really good site to make sure that your student is following, or on Instagram and whatnot. And then the last one, and again, for both of those, there's websites that are incorporated with that. So if your student doesn't like Instagram, is not on Instagram, I recognize that there might be some students in that boat. There are websites affiliated with both of those. So I gave you the student affairs one. At the very end, I'll try to find the student involvement one to give you too. But if you do a quick Google search, they will be on there. And then the third is me. And I kind of get a little bit outdated at this point. They're here. They're normally here, but we're here really, figuratively. We are starting this, we start the semester off, and then hopefully their need for me is, less and less as the week goes on, as the weeks go on, because they are involved, they're finding their niches. But I recognize that this year is completely different. And there might be people who are still following my account who still kind of need, they remember my name from the summer, they remember the office, they were like, yeah, you were the kind of that touch point person. So we're pushing out some really great content. I just did my first Lions in the Kitchen story. It's a highlight now. So I'm a cook. I love cooking. It's something that I really enjoy doing. And so we picked a couple dates here in the next month or two to showcase some recipes. And so kind of grab some ingredients, and here are your utensils, and I'll post some videos on how to make it. So we started off with a casserole on Friday. And then in the spirit of kind of fall in October, I do anticipate some type of pumpkin muffin type recipe or something coming in. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. But just, you know, some content that my office is putting through, more along the lines on how to support students and, you know, tips for kind of navigating, you know, the virtual space with the fall semester. So those would be my start. I will say it's a huge caveat. You know, we can't force students to get involved virtually. It is so much harder to do that than in person. I recognize that. I even go through periods where I check out, you know, and I'm just like, I'm done. I don't even want to be anywhere near my computer for the next, you know, couple days or whatnot. And I think that space is important, but, you know, I wanted you to know that there were so many great programs and initiatives that were going on just so that you could kind of touch base. And if you're in the know, and then maybe it's just a little, you know, caffeine chat of your own around the table, like, hey, I saw that, you know, you loved playing soccer in college or in high school, you know, I know you can't play soccer or try out for the club team yet, but like, are there other ways that you could meet people, you know, through that, even in the virtual space? You know, they're coming up with all sorts of creative content. So I thought that might be helpful to kind of address. There's nothing I can mandate your student to do. I can't sit there and, you know, obviously be like, hey, where were you? And force them to do anything. But I think that to the extent that you can just, you know, share these resources and just keep kind of touching base with them, you know, that's the goal. All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about student engagement first and foremost. I think the next thing, and this kind of makes some sense. So many of you, not surprisingly, were asking about what is going on in the spring semester. So the answer to that is I don't know. Of course I don't know. It's September 21st, I think we're on. But I can share with you what I do know. And that's always been something I've been really transparent about on here. So hopefully you will know everything that I do, and we'll go from there. So I have been told, the powers that be, that we will have a decision about what spring semester is going to look like in November. So we will not have that decision now. We will not have that decision prior to or during any of the Spend a Day at TCNJ events. But I was, you know, the plan is to do that in November, and it's coinciding with registration for the spring semester classes. So I'll talk a little bit about registration and some academic related things in a minute, but I just want to kind of manage expectations for everybody here. If you can feel free to share that with other people, but the plan is that right around kind of that early to mid-November timeframe when we're doing registration for the new students, we are going to hear about what that decision is going to be for the spring semester. A couple of other questions that came up. A handful of them were pertaining to housing. So if the college allows for boarding in the spring semester, those types of questions. So I don't have any final details on that either, but I would anticipate a couple things. One, I would anticipate that your students probably going to be single occupancy still in that scenario. So if we're on campus in the spring semester, and if we're living on campus and we're housing, I would assume going in that it's going to be single occupancy, similar to what the setup was going to be for the fall semester. No rest for the weary. All of these task forces and groups that had done so much work over the summer months to prepare for an in-person fall semester, you know, they're kicking right back up again if they even stopped. I'm not even sure that they did, just to go, okay, so now we've got a couple more months. We know this decision is going to be coming out sometime in November. How do we, you know, what do we need to tweak? What do we need to do based on more information that we know now, et cetera, for what that's going to look like? So I would anticipate that going in. I do not know if it will be the same room assignment. We do have a very, very small number of students on campus that are living on campus right now for the fall semester that met certain criteria in order to do so, and most of these were students with housing insecurities and other concerns. So I don't know how that is impacted with where assignments were for the first year students and the new transfer students that were potentially going to live on campus. So I don't know with that 100% certainty, but again, once we kind of have that either yes or no go ahead for the spring semester, the housing office will be sending out a lot more information about that. The last piece that I can kind of speak to, at least right now, is a little bit about timeline. So normally what happens in January, so first day of classes for the spring semester is Monday, January 25. All right. So Traditionally, move-in for the new students who start in the spring semester is that Thursday prior. So for this coming year, it would be Thursday, January 21st. Wait, let me double check my notes. Was it 21st or 20th? 21st. So that would be for the 100 or so students, 100, 125 students that typically will move on and start in the spring semester for us. Now, if it's a scenario, again, where everybody is coming to, if we're moving on now, all of our new students that typically, would already be on campus. The only other thing I would predict in this scenario is that we're looking, again, at some type of staggered move-in schedule. I don't see a scenario from a safety perspective where we would have all the students move in on Thursday. So again, not privy to any of those conversations. I know that they're starting up again, but I would anticipate single occupancy, TBD on where the room would be, and some spacing out in terms of when students are coming back to campus. So that's really all the updates that I have. Let me just check my notes with anything regarding for the spring decision and for housing. And again, sometime looking in that early to mid-November timeframe is what we're looking at for there. All right. Okay, moving on. So registration in spring classes, and actually let me just pause for a second and circle back because we're running okay on time, and I just think it might be a little bit easier for me to scroll through and make sure that I still, all right. Jill, I think you're referring to the on-campus first-year experience. The deadline was locked on Friday, unfortunately, but let me address that when I talk about the spend day events in a couple of minutes. Lauren, the extracurricular virtual is a challenge for the hours of online classes. Zoom fatigue is real. I so can empathize with your student. And I say that because my two faculty members this semester, they go the whole time. And I think I got lucky last year that there was a little bit more maybe asynchronous work. But I spent my first Saturday, so this was not this past Saturday, but the Saturday prior, in class for 7 straight hours with an hour break in between for lunch, although I didn't get the full hour. And at the end of that day, I was like, oh my gosh, I am exhausted. So I get it. It's really difficult then to add on even wanting to spend more time engaging. And that's where I think it's just really your students, just kind of depends on where they're at, right? And I talked a little bit about this over the summer. Some students dove right in and they were super involved and they were, wanting to get into that space very quickly. And that's one thing, but, even just in normal in-person capacities, sometimes it takes them a couple weeks to warm up. So your student might be the student now who's like, you know what, I got a couple weeks under my belt, feeling a little bit more settled from an academic perspective. Now let me see about what some types of opportunities and things are going on. Or you might have the student who it takes until November or December until they're a little bit comfortable with that. They can join up at any time. And I really want to stress that. I think that was a great point. So Lauren, thank you for making that comment because, it doesn't matter when they decide that they want to engage. When they're ready, jump in, because these student organizations, for as much as your students kind of hesitant, like, I don't know, or maybe I'm Zoom fatigue or not, these student organizations are chomping at the bit to get new members, to engage with the new students. It's such a welcoming community that they, just tell them to rip the Band-Aid off and just try it once. They won't get disappointed. And I think to remember too, right, that, they're going to have to try out a whole bunch of student orgs to figure out their fit. So if they go to one and it ends up being like, oh my gosh, like, no, that's not for me. Like, don't let that jade your student from thinking that, that's not always going to be the case if they go to another org or another org. So putting themselves out there and doing those types of things. But if your student's not there yet, then they're just not there yet. And if the fatigue happens, and your students are feeling it, but our upper class students are feeling that equally as much. And sometimes our grad students. So just wanted to address that too. Housing. Okay. So I addressed the single occupancy in the same room assignments. I'm not 100% sure on that. Let's see here. It's frustrating, Lindsay, considering so many New Jersey colleges are having students live on campus. Kelly, yeah, I get you. I get it. There's also a lot of data out there that's not going so great right now, even though they're on campus. I don't follow those things as much as my other colleagues in the resident housing space and some of these other areas, but there wasn't going to be a good situation either way here. And even the students that are having on-campus living, there's some big challenges for a lot of those schools right now in terms of, off-campus cases, on-campus cases, and all those types of things. So, you can sit here and if you want to put in the comment, I get it. It's frustrating. You want your student to be here. I understand that. that's just the decision that was made, and we're trying to make the best of it for the, and hopefully the spring semester we're back and better than ever. Okay. Are there any clubs that are in person? No, that's not happening. Status of student IDs, Jeff. Hi, Jeff. Thanks. Yeah, I'll get to that too. That came up a couple of times there. Yeah, Rebecca at 0.2. I mean, people are closing left and right. It just, yeah, we were overly cautious, and that's kind of where we are on that. And personal opinion, I think that was the right call to make too, but I understand the other side. Where's your big coffee mug, Lindsay? Colleen, yes, I know. I came in here. I actually, you know how it's chaotic when you're on vacation. I just like woofed down dinner and ran in here and just realized I didn't have a mug. Also, when you're staying in a rental, for those of you who do, the coffee mugs are tiny. They are so small. I have to refill it up like 4 times to get my normal cup of tea in the morning. So if that's the worst thing that happens today, it'll be fine. All right. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead. I think I'm pretty caught up here with questions now. Yes, somebody mentioned, Linda, thank you, the COVID dashboard. That's up and running. That was a new thing that ended up, that launched this week. So there's a lot more information on there that's updated, I believe, every day with regards to numbers and counts, just to kind of be transparent in those things. Okay, and then I think we're caught up there. So I'm going to move ahead to some things from like a registration perspective that I think would be helpful information for you to know now that we're kind of, again, a couple weeks into the semester and going from there. The first is I'm going to put in the group chat the link again. And I know that over the summer we had Frank Cooper, who's our executive director for the Office of Records and Registration. Come on. This link takes you to the academic calendar for 2020 and 2021 academic year. And this is a really great resource for you as a parent to have, just to make sure that you, again, in that kind of coaching and supportive role for your student, have an idea about what's going on campus with some of these important deadlines. So I wanted to link you to that. Somebody asked about withdrawing from classes, withdrawing from the college, deadlines for those. So there are 2 more deadlines with regards to withdrawing from the college. Tomorrow is the deadline. If you withdraw by tomorrow, 75% refund. Then the following Tuesday, September 29th, if you withdraw from the college, 50% refund. And then that's it. So no more refunds after the 29th. And this was all delayed. This was pushed back significantly several weeks. Again, just because understanding that we're in a really unique spot here with the pandemic and everything that is going on. The other thing that I wanted to briefly touch about, and I have to go back to my notes. I want to do this in separate order. No, I'm going to reverse and come back. Okay, let's talk about registration for spring classes. We do this and there's a window. Okay, so November 3rd, which I believe is a Tuesday. Yep, Tuesday, November 3rd through Friday, November 13th. It is a 10-day window. All the students on campus will be registering for their spring classes. We do this in credit order. So the more credits you have, the earlier you get to sign up for your spring classes. So on Tuesday, November 3rd, nobody who's listening in on this phone call has a student who's going to be registering on November 3rd. All of our 7th semester, our seniors who are 1 semester left to go and who have all the credits right now, the majority of their credits completed, they will be registering on the front end. So normally our first year and our provisional students, they will be, well, actually, the provisional students might be, I don't remember how their pre-registration goes, so I apologize because I'm not 100% sure on that. But our traditional first-year students, your student will be registering. They'll be assigned a window, like a time to register based on credits, and it will happen like the last 3 to 4 days of that window. So your student is going to be at the very end of that second week. They can be looking at, say, I would say anywhere between November 11th, 12th, 13th, somewhere in that time frame. Okay, so that's when your student's going to be registering for the spring class. What they have to do, so tied to that, right? I got a question or two submitted. I had a question submitted with regards, haven't heard from their advisor yet, and what's that about? So, and I do have another question in here about that. So here is how advising works. So is it uncommon for your student not to have heard from their advisor yet? I don't think so. This is going to vary significantly by academic school and even sometimes department within the academic school. But I think that everybody, the first couple weeks there's a lot going on, right? There's a lot going on for your student. There's certainly a lot going on for the faculty. They're trying to figure out all the things. So if your student has not heard from their faculty member yet, I don't think that, please don't take that as a negative sign, right? We're all still trying to get into the flow of this semester. And because all of our advisors are faculty members, they have full course loads teaching and obviously those commitments. So what we do, though, is that every new student has to meet with their advisor, prior to registering for the spring semester. So if your student has heard from their advisor already, great. If they haven't, at the end of the day, if it were me, I'd have my student just send a quick email. Hi, introduction. Hi, I'm one of your new advisees. My name is Lindsay Barn. I'm a first-year student in the nursing department. I'm so excited to be working with you. Is there, what's the process for you setting up times, or us getting together to be able to talk about the spring semester and do an introduction, right? Because they will have to meet with their advisor before they register for the spring. There's actually a hold that is placed on every student's account. They cannot register for the spring if that hold's still on there. And the hold comes off when the student meets with the advisor. Now, before you tell all of your students, oh my God, you get off this call and you're like, Lindsay said you have to email them immediately, or if you have already run to the other room, come back. It's okay. Please don't bombard the advisors. Almost all of these sessions with the new students are taking place in October. So we're in plenty of time. This is an October, early November thing. Obviously, this would be an in-person meeting if we were in normal times. We are not in normal times. So I would anticipate that the faculty advisors will be setting up and doing these appointments in real time on Zoom. There are some faculty in some departments that may choose to do this via email, but my understanding is that its majority will be some type of Zoom session to talk about the semester, right? So we took care of all the advising for your student in the first semester, but now your student is going to start to take ownership of that process and how they kind of want to craft this unique undergraduate experience, particularly to them. So that advisor is going to come in and say, okay, you're going to need to do, these few things, and you may have some choice here. Or that's the start of the conversation about, okay, well, do you have an interest in a minor? Do you have an interest in double major? Is the spring of your first year the opportunity to start that? Or is this something more, it's going to be sophomore year? So all of those kind of conversations are going to start to take place in that meeting with their advisor. And these meetings are generally in October. So please don't super bombard, or force your student to go run off immediately and do it. But I would say within the next week or so, if they haven't heard from them, feel free to shoot them an email and see about the process, and just ask about timeline. I would have no doubt that just because your student hasn't heard from an advisor, there might just be setting up all their windows, and they're going to send an email out and say, hey, here are the times, and select one, and then we can meet to talk about, what your spring semester is going to look like. So we are not late. We are perfectly on time with advisor stuff. And I just want to throw that out there. But again, at the end of the day, this is, your students' ownership and responsibility. So if your students thinks if they just wait and then eventually we'll hear from them, they probably will. I mean, I think that's actually one of the reasons that you come to TCNJ is that you don't get lost in the shuffle. But that doesn't mean that they necessarily need to sit back if they want to be a little bit more proactive in making sure that they're having the opportunity to have that conversation with them. Okay. I covered all those things. My student has perfect. All right. That was with regards to registration for spring classes. Last thing I want to make note in terms of just kind of general housekeeping items for recreation records and registration, and then I'll go back and I'll check the chat for questions. We have another kind of important window coming up here, and I'm going to give you the dates. It is Monday, October 5 through Tuesday, October 20th. So it's a 15-day window. And again, I'll repeat that, Monday, October 5 through Tuesday, October 20. And that is the window for the mid-year progress reports. Midterm time. Yay! So Frank talked about this a little bit in the chat over the summer. If you want to get a chance and go back and watch his chat on the YouTube page, I believe it was, July 12th or I think it was July 19th. But we talked a little bit about mid-year progress reports. So those are essentially kind of a touch base for the student. The student can log into pause. And once that period is over, midterms are kind of done, and they have a very easy red, yellow, green stoplight system. So each professor that your student is taking this semester is going to submit almost kind of like a touch base. So if it's a green, it's, hey, you're good to go. You know what? You're doing well in the class. No cause for concern here. Keep doing a great job. Your yellows, if your student has a kind of a yellow sign or color, I guess, or square and filled in circle next to their name for that course, that's going to be like a, hey, we're doing okay, but need to work on some things. probably need to come in and see me. Let's chat, right? So not horrible, but we got some work to do because I want to make sure you're okay. The red is like, okay, come in and see me immediately. We have to talk. We're not doing all that. We've got some major problems here, right? So it's a really convenient color system, red, yellow, green, like the stop signs, stop lights. And that will come out between October 5 and October 20. The faculty have like a 15-day window depending on when their midterms are and those pieces. Now, can you see that? Only if your student gave you access via FERPA, okay? So they will go in and see it, but this color system and these mid-year progress reports do not come home to you like they used to do in high school. Just have the conversation with your student. That's what we really encourage people, parents to do at this point. It's like, okay, I know your mid-year reports are, hey, I heard midterms are coming. So how are you doing? Can I help? Not can I help, obviously, but like, can I make your favorite meal, or do you need extra support at this time? Or, is there anything that I can do to kind of create that environment to just make sure that you're really focused and you're on it. And then afterwards you can just say, hey, like, I know that the reports came out, like, how are you doing? And is there anything that you want to share with me? If your student gave you the option to see those, it's in pause under your, I believe, the auxiliary access, so that you can go in and kind of see that. And I'm not sure, internally in the system what that looks like to get there, but you'd have an opportunity to see those if your student elected to. And I think the statistic, it's something like 99% of our students allow you through FERPA to see to pay the bill, but I think it's only like 3% of our students will let you see grades. So again, please also don't call the Office of Records and Registration and ask. They can't share with you, but really just use it as an opportunity to kind of touch base with your student. And I wanted you to be aware of that window because that's like a really critical time for them in terms of those pieces. Also, if you're a parent or if you're a transfer student that's on tonight, your registration window could be earlier because you're coming in, especially for my students that completed their associate's degree at the community college and you're like a junior level status or class standing, you could be potentially, again, closer to like that end of that first week. So just wanted to make that note there because I forgot to mention that prior. Okay, I'm going to come back. Oh no, distracted by comments. Okay, let me come back and see if there were any other questions pertaining to this particular area before I move forward. Okay, changing of the major. Kim, that's a great question. We have a whole internal process. Give me 1 second and see if I can find the link to send you about the change of major request. So again, it's a request. There's a beautiful PDF that the Office of Academic Affairs put together that will highlight, it's like every major department and what you would need to do in order to trace there. So let me try to find that and I'll get back to you. It's my internet's a little bit slow. So I will find that for you, but it's on the academic affairs page and it's a PDF. It's just change of major. It's one of the policies and it will walk that student through. And I do believe on the academic calendar, if you go back to that link, there is a date that says the last date to apply for change of major for the spring semester. And I believe it's sometime in mid-October. So feel free to check that out as well. I believe it was a mid-October date for that too. Okay. Do they pick their, wait a minute. Will there be more one-on-one advisor chats with students since they're so isolated? I don't know. I think that the response could depend on the school. I know that all the schools have been trying really hard, and I think that the faculty have done, at least from what I've heard so far, a really great job at this pivot. And I think they're trying, they're engaging the students as much as they can. But with regards to advisors doing more chats with their students, I'm not sure how that will be kind of addressed as the semester goes forward. Do they pick their courses because first semester was chosen for them? Yeah, so they pick their courses, Chris, that was a great question. They pick their courses from here on out. So they are the masters of their own journey and destiny from here on out. Their advisors there obviously to be a great resource for them in charting that and making sure they're getting off their requirements and they have some flexibility to maybe do some other things and really kind of craft that unique experience for them. But we kind of took it over because there's a lot of clunkiness. Clunkiness isn't the right word. there's a lot of systems you got to learn in one time. We got Canvas for the classes. We have Pause for all the student records stuff. You've got your email. Like, it was just, you've got OWL for your health forms. There's a lot going on. And, not, the opportunity, because our faculty are we have a faculty advising model, and they're not on contract for July and August. That's the critical time that we're trying to get these schedules built. So we take the ownership of doing that on the front end, but really from here on out, your student is going to be the one who's going to be responsible for that. Okay. Okay. Link to the COVID dashboard. I will work on that as well, Phyllis. I can do that. Yep. Let me see here. List of classes offered in the spring be available. That's a great question, Jerry. That's a good question. I don't know. I have no idea when that becomes available. I'll try to follow that. I'll try to find that out and let you know. I'm sure it's somewhere. Where do we check which credits from Brookdale were taken for the senior year of high school? So your student that's all in Pause under their education, I believe, tab or academics tab. So all of that information about the transcript and which credits came over is in there. It might be a little difficult. You might have to take a couple minutes for your student to be able to go through and navigate that. But that is all of that information is in their student record, which we call Pause, right? Okay. Yep. So again, the mid-year progress report date range is October 5 to the 20th. Okay. Let's see here. I think we're all caught up. Okay. Let's see here. Oh gosh, you all are so great. You're already answering some of these other questions. Okay, so Kim, your son's spoken to his advisor a couple of times, office hours, and then they go to, yeah, I mean, that's great. And the office hours thing, I mean, my faculty for my 2 grad classes this semester have office hours that are virtual, and everybody, I believe, is mandated to do that. So that was a great comment too. Okay. All righty. Awesome. So let's go that. Let's shift gears a little bit to spend a day at TCNJ. So I mentioned this, the president wanted to create some opportunities in the fall semester to safely bring students and potentially family to campus who were interested in coming for like a just little kind of touch base, right? To be able to maybe do a tour, just kind of connect with people on campus, meet some other new families, and do this obviously in that space. So, okay. So as soon as Welcome Week was over, we were like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So I've conveniently called this Spend a Day at TCNJ. I like things to rhyme, so I thought that was pretty cute. And basically, the students had an opportunity up until last Friday to RSVP for that. If your student did not, I believe for right now, unfortunately, I don't believe they're going to be able to sign up anymore. What we have in there is what we have. If that changes, I will certainly let the students know, but there's some health and safety restrictions for why that was the case, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So the deadline closed on Friday. We had an overwhelming amount of response. And again, so just to preface this, we've never done this event before, period. Brand spanking new. Also, we don't normally have challenges with conflicts with classes because we host orientation type days like this in July. And we always obviously have, vacation concerns and traveling and those types of things. But we essentially came out to your student. We said, all right, here are all the available days that we're hosting this, potentially hosting this these days, and let us know which days that you can come based on your availability, and you can't miss class to come, right? That was a big thing that I did that. So we sent the email out. We gave them about a week and a half to let us know, and we had no idea what type of response that we were going to get, right? I think that there's certainly many students, obviously with some who have parents on this call who, are really chomping at the bit to be on campus, but we have a ton of students who are not comfortable doing that at this time. So we set the deadline and we got the results back at least. And I took a look at the data the other day, and we have an overwhelming amount who can only come on the 2 weekend days we offered. So we offered a Saturday and a Sunday over the weekend. It was started on Tuesday, the 6th of October, going through Friday, the 16th. Overwhelming majority who can only come on the weekend day. And that was like, oh, okay, that's a problem. So not that it's a problem, but now we got to figure some things out. So the hope is that by the end of this week, the students will be notified what date we are. I have a meeting with the president tomorrow to clear up a couple of questions, because again, there's just some information and some details that we really need to iron out here before we communicate dates to the students and move forward from there. So your student should expect, if they signed up to attend, should expect to hear some information by the end of the week. And I can share with you that it was only about a third of the incoming cohort that wanted to sign up to attend. So they were allowed to bring a maximum of only one guest. That was it. And in terms of the day's events, for those of you who did, your student did sign up, roughly 10 o'clock to 3 is really what we're looking at with that window. Things that they can expect and activities that have been confirmed. And again, I'm meeting with Dr. Foster tomorrow, so I'm going to flesh out more of these details, but there will be some welcome component from her. There will be icebreakers for the student, so they'll have an opportunity to meet other new students and do some in-person activities. There will be lunch, of course. There will be a campus tour, because we recognize that your students haven't been on campus and gotten to see it in quite some time. And we're working on potentially hosting like a resource fair for other offices to, basically set up so that parents who attend and students can ask questions if they have any outstanding questions. So we're fine-tuning the details for the day, but it's looking like it's going to be kind of like a 10 to 3 deal. Right? Yeah. And Lauren, great question. So the students received emails that went to their TCNJ email. They actually got an initial invite email from me, and they also got a reminder email last Tuesday for the deadline there. And Lauren, yeah, that's my question, and that's part of my conversation with the president, is that end, so is it potentially to go to 2 weekends? Based on how we're signing up the day, this isn't an enormous undertaking in terms of faculty and staff volunteering to run the day in the way that we've set it up. So that's really kind of the big question mark right now. We already had so many of them, and just such a testament to TCNJ. So many people came up and stepped up and said, yes, of course, we'll help. But if we're going to be adding some days on the weekend potentially, or taking away potentially some days that were clearly not okay on the schedule, we're gonna do that. So that's where we are in terms of those pieces for the day. So that's a couple of the activities. That's generally the time frame. I expect to hear more tomorrow. Flesh out some of these last minute questions and things, not last minute things, but some things with the president to be able to move this conversation forward and get these things planned. I want to talk for just a couple of minutes about health and safety and how this is going to factor in. So when you come to camp, when these events are happening on campus, we are breaking all of the students up and all of the parents up into small groups. I'm calling them pods. All right. I don't know what the number is going to flush out on that, but I know that it can't really be more than like 15 students or 15 parents in a pod. And the expectation is that, your student will get assigned a pod, you will get assigned a pod, and you're going to move through the majority of the day with that small group. And each pod will have a pod leader, right, that will be escorting them around, doing the campus tour, answering questions, those types of things. And we're limited to that just based on capacities in our buildings, right? So, each pod, the goal, as long as the weather's nice, almost everything that we're doing is hopefully going to be outside, right, to restrict that. The weather's bad or we run into any issues, we are going to be having indoor locations for, some of these events that we can. We're in the process right now of actually going through and making sure that ventilation in all of the spaces that we want to use is all right. I can't even begin to explain to you all of the complexities of even hosting this type of event on campus, given the fact that we're in the middle of this global pandemic. So we're moving through all those details, but it's going to be really important to note the students and the parents are going to be separated for the majority of the day, and you will be expected, you're going to be into a pod, you're going to be expected to move around with that pod throughout the duration of the day and the events that we have planned. We are going to be requiring a couple things of your student, and actually a couple things of the guest if they're bringing a parent as a guest. The first, so health check-ins. We have something called the ROAR app, and I'm going to put a link to it in the group chat. The student, if your student doesn't have the app already, they should download it. You, as a parent, have the opportunity to download it as well. But every day there is a daily check-in. Oh gosh, I wish I don't know don't even remember if I did it on my day for today, but a daily check-in. It asks you through a couple of questions pertaining to symptoms and how you're feeling and all that kind of jazz. All of the students that are coming to campus for this program and all of the guests that are coming, the one guest that they're allowed to bring, are going to be required to fill out the daily check-in for 14 days leading up to the event. All right, so that's a very quick turnaround. Your student is going to receive what hasn't started yet, but a very lengthy email from us with everything that they have to do in order to meet these requirements to even come. All right. And they need to pay attention to that, and they need to make sure they're on it. And one of the biggest ones is that they're going to have to do this daily check-in every day for 14 days leading up to it. All right. They can't go back 2 days after and they say they forgot and do that. They need to make sure that they're doing this. And if they get the app, that's going to be the way that we're going to track it. Now, parents, we're in the process working on creating a website form for you. So if you want to download the app, that's great. But if you don't, that's okay too. But the student will receive a link for their guest to go in and put in, again, first name, last name, email, and then it's going to walk you through some questions as well. But you will be required to do that for the 14 days leading up to the program as well. So more information about what that for the instructions for how that's going to look will be coming to the students, but that's something that will be going out shortly in addition to when they're getting their assigned date for that. All right, let me go back here for that, working on the website for the parents. Okay, I think from a minimum, you're going to be able to expect, obviously, that masks are going to be mandatory. Social distancing, 6 feet apart whenever possible, will also be mandatory. We're still fleshing out some other things that we're going to, if there's anything else that we're missing, and some things from a health and safety perspective there. If you are, also a very important thing to put here, if you are out of state family, I'm going to put in the group chat the link to the no-fly zone. That's not what they call it. What did they call this with New Jersey? The travel ban states, right? So as of Tuesday, I believe it's updated every Tuesday, we're on 30. We have 30 of the 49 remaining states that are I guess they have to quarantine, isolate. I'm not very good with the lingo, but they have to do something for like 14 days leading up to it. So unfortunately, the ones closest to us, so Delaware and Virginia are on the can't come, list in terms of you got to quarantine for 2 weeks once you get here or something of that nature. Maryland just came off the list. Those are the big ones, I guess, that are relative to the fact that we're a regional college and most of the people are coming within the regional portions of that. I'm putting on there to pay special attention. This is something that came up in planning about 2 weeks ago, actually. And, that's a big concern for some of our out-of-state families. So if you're an out-of-state family, please don't buy a plane ticket yet. Please just don't do any kind of travel arrangements until we figure out those dates and that process. And we're gonna have some more information to give to the students on that. And it came up in a meeting the other day, fingers crossed. I mean, if Pennsylvania goes on that list, Lord only knows, you won't get to see my face there. That's for sure. So definitely some challenges right now with the fact that, we have, some out-of-staters and we have people who that's going to be a challenge for them to even be able to come. I really want to stress this because I recognize that, and I'm kind of trying to keep an eyeball on the comments, and I'll go back and take a look, that for some of you, you're like, oh my gosh, yes, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for putting this together. I know it's a lot of work, but it's really going to mean a lot to my student. We're trying to create a nice day for your student to be able to connect and really feel, welcomed and at the college and all those pieces. And I'm certainly glad and more than happy to do it. But I didn't want to create an event that for the students who physically may not be able to get here, right? So either they're not hopping on planes because they live too far away, or they're on a travel ban state, or whatever the reason. Or for my students who are just like, wow, like I'm just not really comfortable doing that right now in the midst of everything that's going on. I didn't want them to feel that they were at a disadvantage because they didn't choose to sign up or they didn't want to come, right? That's not the point of this. This is just an opportunity for the people who do want to take it, but there will not be students, and I made that very clear in both of my emails to them, that I don't want you to feel that you're going to be at a huge disadvantage and be totally behind if you don't come, right? So the day is going to be nice, but it's not going to be a make or break for the students in that boat. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a minute, but I really wanted to stress that right now. So some just a quick note about all those pieces. I think the other thing to consider, again, last point with this travel ban piece, is that if you've vacationed in any of those states, factoring that into the equation as well. I know that I moved my almost 2-year-old next month to a new daycare, and I, he started for like a day, and then I was like, we're going away on vacation for 2 weeks, and the director was like, oh my God, where are you going? And I was like, oh, just New Jersey. Just New Jersey. But she was really hesitant, on some of those pieces. So it worked out okay. But I think if you have been doing any travel, you need to keep that in mind as well. If you went and traveled to a state, happens to be on the ban list. So again, I've been working with our health services folks, people much smarter than me, to kind of figure out and flesh out what all those details are. But it's not as easy as just, okay, anybody can kind of come. And technically, I guess anybody can come, but there's just some things in place here from a state perspective that we need to make sure that we're paying attention to as we start to plan these things. The last thing is that every student is going to be required to complete their mandatory safe college training link thing. And I don't remember if my boss said that she was going to be watching tonight, but if she is, Kelly, I'm really sorry, because I have not done it yet. And I know that I need to, because it's already late. I am late. But all of the students were required to complete an online training module that talked about coming, honestly, I don't even remember what it was. It was all related to kind of coming to campus and utilizing things and safety procedures and all that kind of stuff. We have to do all these checks. We're going to be checking the daily check-ins for your student and for your guests to make sure that they are meeting those requirements and they pass. And we're going to check and identify and verify that every student has done this training. Again, information that's coming to all the students who have registered once we flesh out exactly which dates that we're going to be offering. But just really to keep that in mind. And that's not an email that your student should ignore. We want them to read it thoroughly and make sure that they're doing all of these things so that you can come to campus and we can keep everybody safe. That's really kind of my priority right now. We want to have kind of a really fun day. And we want to give our students an opportunity to meet each other and connect and have our faculty and staff around to be able to talk to them as well. But we're not doing that at the risk of putting anybody in danger for getting sick. All right. And then obviously based on, you can go to the COVID dashboard and see we're not immune. We're not in a bubble. There are plenty of cases off campus, and I believe we had 1 or 2 on, but it's just really something that we're taking really seriously. And as a result of that, and the fact that the timeline's really short, there's just a lot of moving pieces that we still kind of have to flesh out. So that's kind of where I have in terms of all my updates right now. There is a lot that we have to get done in the next week and a half or so. For the parents, I will say, I think that there is going to be some type of welcome from the president and potentially some type of Q&A maybe session, depending on her schedule. I'll know more tomorrow. And I think the other piece to that is that we would like to do some type of session. I just don't know what you need. So I'm going to throw in there just my email, that studenttransitions@tcnj.edu. If your student has signed up and you're coming, feel free to shoot us an email with ideas for topics or things that we can do for kind of that parent-to-parent session that I have slotted some time off to host, because I really want to make sure that we're providing as much worthwhile, good use of your time as well if you're choosing to come to campus for the day. All right, I talked a lot there. Let me scroll back and see where we're at with questions and things of that nature. Okay, very good. All right, I think we're there. Oh gosh, I went back too far. Hold on, just bear with me for just a second. Yep, Lauren. Okay, I just got back to your question, which I saw. Yeah, Chris, your son has 5 days of classes, so he didn't want to go. Yeah, and I can't do that. I can't ask a student to miss class. And for the student staff, and again, this was a challenge for me as well. I had 70 students who worked over the semester, but I only had about less than half. I think I had maybe 30 who chose and felt comfortable signing up to work these events. Same thing for them though. I was like, nobody's missing class. So it's really a challenge because we were trying to do this in the middle of the semester and recognizing that our first year students, there were some scheduling challenges that they may have been, not available really on any of the days. And that's kind of what we saw with the results, that most people could only come on the weekends. So we'll adjust that. Oh, student IDs. Yep. That was my next little comment under that. I didn't get to that, but that's a really great segue. I only have 1 bullet point. So if your student is coming to the Spend a Day event, yes, they will get their student ID. Some more information on that as well, because we may have had some who didn't ever submit a photo, and I don't know if the IDs will be available for them, but we've got I'm working with student accounts to get some processes and some language in that email for the students there. If your student is not coming, and again, this goes back to me trying to make sure that we're being as equitable as possible, and I don't want the student to miss it. So we're going to find a way to get your student your ID. We're talking about potentially mailing it out with any types of goodies that the students will be receiving on campus that day, and timing it hopefully so they're going to be getting those in late October as well. So again, anything that we're going to give to the students, we'll make sure that we're sending home to the students who don't come. And that's where we are with the IDs right now. The hope is that we can get that fleshed out as well, and some more details to come in the next couple weeks there. Okay, if they signed up for campus day, are they guaranteed a spot? John, yes. I mean, if a student signed in by the deadline, we'll figure, we're going to do that. I think the concern now is just that, again, not knowing, because we planned this event for the first time, we just saw an overwhelming amount who only wanted or only could do Saturday and Sunday, and we didn't have enough slots for that. That's why we're working out potentially trying to add on a second weekend or maybe take away some dates. I mean, there were some that we offered during the week where it was like 2 students who signed up. So again, trying to figure out how the best to do that as we're pulling this event together. Okay, let's see here. Lauren, just out of curiosity, why are student IDs important now? They're really not. I think for some people, it's like a official thing. It's like a connection to the college. They just really want their student ID, and I can certainly empathize with that. I asked questions about, like, it's technically like a government issued ID. So like, can we even send that out? Do we mail that out? How does that work? Et cetera, et cetera. We did prioritize. I mean, every student who's living on campus right now obviously has their ID to get into buildings and the things that they need to do. But I think some students, that there were 1 or 2 exceptions of students who kind of needed it to verify scholarship or something of that nature. But for the overwhelming majority, I think it's mostly just kind of having that official connection to the college, which I understand. I mean, I still have mine. I still have my old one. They let me wear sunglasses, not on, but on my head, and it was a crazy looking photo. But I think that's more along the sentiment for that, not necessarily needing it for any of the on-campus things that you would traditionally be using your ID for, getting into residence halls and buildings and those types of things. Okay. Alrighty. Massachusetts right now, you're still okay. I took a look at that as well, because I think we had some questions about that. John, what types of events are for the parents for the TCNJ visit in October? So you're going to get the parents and the guests are going to get almost the same experience. The only difference is that we're not going to make you do icebreakers unless any of you want to run around and do icebreaker activities with each other. But you're going to get a campus tour. Or again, a session with, some type of session with the president, some type of other session if we find enough content or enough interest in doing like a parent-to-parent type of thing, campus tour, lunch, and again, this resource fair at the end of the day. So the days are pretty similar for the students and the parents in that regard. Robin, I agree. Thank you. You are welcome for organizing it. I know that for the people who are really excited, they're looking forward to it. And the hope is that we can, we're just going to put together the best day that we can, obviously as safe as possible. Okay. So I think I'm all caught up. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Will they also have a student day event? No parents, just the students only. No, I think, well, the students, and that was interesting too. So ended up somewhere between like 55 to slightly over half, 55% of the students that chose to bring a parent, and there are a host of students that are not choosing to bring a parent. So it was really all depending on your student's perspective, but there's not going to be like a separate event where it would only be students. That was actually also a good question that I didn't mention about January. If the student, and I mentioned this over the summer, but if the decision in November is yes, everybody's coming back, and we start to flesh out some details about, how that's going to look in terms of movement and whatnot, I don't know budget dollars wise where I'll be at that point. But if there's any opportunity for me to, I do like a winter welcome program for typically the 100 to 125 new students that are coming. And if we do have everybody come back, the hope is that I've got some dollars, and I would love to be able to just put together a couple of opportunities safely for the new students to be able to do some of those welcoming activities that they would have gotten like in that welcome week scenario for January. So not really sure how that's going to work out yet. But again, as I mentioned to all of you over the summer, I have not forgotten about your student, and we're just going to kind of wait and see how things go. And to the extent that I can try to make it as special as possible when we do get them back, that's the goal for me. So, okay. Let's see here. Jeff, I missed you too. I'm so glad to be back. I'm so glad that so many of you logged on. It was so nice. All right, I think we've got most of that. Let me just go back and double check. I want to be good on time. Oh, this is perfect. Okay, 2 minutes. I want to do two final things that I have on here. And the first is with regards to tutoring, because I did get a couple questions about that. So I just put in there is a link to the tutoring center. I know that they opened on September 16th, which one or two parents said that they thought that that was kind of late. The tutoring center did get, there was some restructuring going on over there. I believe there was like a retirement or two as well. I'm not sure. I also think that they have integrated some new technology. So I think there were a couple different factors that were going into that, potentially starting a little bit later than normal. But the second link that I just put in the chat is a how to apply for tutoring link. And I looked this up like 2 hours ago because we got some questions. I was like, I have no idea what's going on over there. So I took a little look and it walks you through step-by-step how to apply for a tutor, which seems really great. So they have their information on there. They're getting up and running. I know that they normally host a combination of individual tutoring one-on-one, but also group tutoring. They have a couple like drop-in sessions as well. They will all be on Zoom for the time being, but they're up and running and they seem pretty good. So really kind of thorough list of instructions for your student, but feel free to pass that along to them. If there's somebody who now a couple weeks into the semester is recognizing that they would love some additional support in that way from some of our students. Alrighty. That was the big one. And then the second last thing, we had a question or two come in about, and this one made me laugh and I can't remember the name of the parent who submitted it, but Canvas. Right? I think your students probably now got a very good taste of how every professor can use Canvas a little bit differently. And one of the parents who wrote in said that, you know, it was very confusing because the assignments weren't under the assignment tab or they were under something else. I have a faculty, again, can empathize because I was about a week and a half in and one of my business courses, I could not find like the syllabus or something. It was a file or something to save my life. I literally could not find it anywhere. And I was texting our little group me chat and I was like, oh my gosh, where is this thing? And it ended up being under files, which was not something that any of my previous professors had used before. And then I found it and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, Canvas, you know, your students probably very quickly picking up that the Canvas can be utilized in many different ways. I also have a professor who preferred using the conference feature in Canvas over Zoom, and that was new, but ended up being really great. So there was some sentiment from you all, and then also one of my colleagues in academic affairs also said, hey, like, you know, they're not on campus. They can't like kind of talk to students about, hey, like what's a tip to do this in Canvas or finding something in pause. I think that, you know, there's some students out there and on the new student side who are just struggling because there's not opportunities at lunch or walking to and from class to be able to kind of ask some of these seemingly silly questions about some of these systems that we use in those pieces. So I just want to know, I just want to recognize that I acknowledge that, yes, I did receive the comment. I laughed only because I understand the plight of your student because I had a similar struggle myself. And I'm going to marinate on that a little bit and see if there's going to be an opportunity, again, because I had other interest from other parts of campus, an opportunity to maybe host like a Zoom session or host something that kind of, you know, is a tips kind of 2.0. You know, I think most people are in there kind of getting started, but sometimes it's really difficult to locate some of this stuff, and especially if you're using a system for a new time. So I just wanted to recognize that I got that comment and I see you, and we'll see what we can do about kind of getting some content in that space as well. All right, let me see. So Jill, the student ID question again, the goal here is that we're finalizing plans to get those mailed out to the students. That's the goal there. Okay, I think that's it. I'm all caught up on questions. I think that was all the you had. It's only 8:32. These normally ran like 10 minutes over. So well, I will just kind of end by saying thank you so much for joining me again and for bearing with us. I hope that you found this information helpful. I am more than willing to do this again if there's if there's a desire and a need for it. We're in uncharted territory in a host of different reasons here, but I genuinely appreciate that you took the time and you joined me tonight. I promise next time I will not forget my tea, my little cup of decaf. But thank you. More to come on the spend days. Obviously, November will be a big month. I really anticipate, I don't know if we'll do one there. I think a touch base in October could be nice, but I do believe that there will be a need for these types of chats going forward more regularly again, especially after the announcement about the spring semester comes in. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that we're back on campus in the spring, and we're able to move forward there. So thank you. If you have any questions, my email is studenttransitions@tcnj.edu. Frank is still here with me for the fall semester, which I really appreciate. So we'll kind of be tackling those emails and getting back to you. But feel free to continue touching base with us that way. So thank you so much. Did I get one more question? Luann, bear with me one second. What do we do if no one has responded into an inquiry sent regarding incorrect revised tuition bills? I don't know if I believe they're in the office now, at least partially 1 or 2 days a week. So here, OSF, I don't know how many emails you've sent, but Office of Student Financial Assistant, that's their general email. You could also try calling their general line. I don't have that number off the top of my head. I don't remember if it's 2211. I don't remember what it was, but if you go to their website, right? So Student Financial Assistance website, they have a general office line, and you could call and see if there's anybody there. I know that they're in the office, I believe, like 1 or 2 days a week. And I know that most administrative offices are kind of 1 or 2 days a week in person, obviously operating fully functional 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday to support the students. But I know that they're starting to add back in-person hours, and that should be expanding now within the next couple of weeks of this semester. So hopefully that answers your question about that, and good luck getting that answer. I know that they were really busy back in August, but the hope is that things have settled down here a bit for them as well. All right, I will stick around like I always do for an extra couple of minutes just to see if there's any other questions that come through. But otherwise, thank you so much. Have a great night, and I will see you hopefully within the next couple of weeks or so. All right, take care.